and this is an incredible turnout. And
This is amazing.
some fans, so it's really special. So thank you for. One of the things I really wanted to do when I arrived here was to get out and meet local artists and engage in the community, because it's what I enjoy doing as a curator. They've kept me pretty busy here, so I was really pleased to be able to just jump right in with the local artists and one of the most prolific artists, as you all know, that I've ever met. So whittling this down, it was fun as well, and I think we did a really nice job of it. And Bruce, would you like to say a few words?
Do I need to?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I know he's really shy, so.
Yeah. Well, I was saying earlier, actually, that, if anybody, most of you know me, so I can pretty much talk about anything, whether I know anything about it or not, and sound like I know what I'm talking about. This is why I teach. Except for my own work, which I have a hard time talking about. And as I've been thinking about that, I think that part of the reason why is, yes, because it's very personal and, all that, but because I'm interested in making something that I don't understand. So it's always, trying to work in not knowing what you're doing and finding that place where you're right on the edge of, like, I'm not sure what the hell this is, but it sure looks good. So putting words to it is, of course, contrary to that. So I try, that's one of the reasons why I make so much work, is because I'm trying to make it fast enough so I can stay ahead of my capacity to understand what I'm doing. That makes sense.
So we narrowed it down somewhat. and so looking from 2007 even into very recently, you were working with, and starting, it's more or less in chronological order. We've mixed it up a little bit. But what was interesting initially, the sort of jumping off point, was you're sort of taking fabrics, and there's this autobiographical element, and sort of stealing clothing from your relatives and in the room maybe, and but then as I got to know you and hear more about this sort of discovery and pushing limits, I think one of the more interesting things for me was this idea of emergence theory and this idea of patterns, and you sort of purposely disrupting those patterns. And I wonder if you might talk about that, and if we could. Is that the too obtuse?
No. Well, I am interested in emergent theory, which is the notion that, it's a move from chaos, from being disorder, to chaos being a kind of order, and which happened at the 60s, 70s, 80s, particularly with the Mandelbrot set. And the notion is that order just spontaneously emerges in the world, as opposed to you have somebody,
top down,
something up here designing how the world looks. Which is a kind of radical change in how we understand order to exist. So for me, I was interested in the emergence because of that whole notion of not knowing what I'm doing, always trying to work ahead of the head that I have that's trying to make sense of the world and trying to work on the other side of that. So, responding very directly to materials. And the reason why the autobiographical aspects are in here, yes, it's about my family, but for me it's more about the fact that I was walking up the stairs, and at the top of the stairs was a bag of trash that my sister, Lynn, had left at the top, and in there was this gingham mock-up dress thing she'd made for my sister, and I was like, oh, I was looking for a pattern, there it is. And my stepmother, who is over here, has tons of fabrics, and they were moving here, and it's like, oh, fabrics, let's look and see what they have. So it isn't so much that I'm using it for autobiographical purposes, it's just what's in front of me. So I'm always trying to respond to just what is happening in front of me.
So I think that's an incredible awareness that you realize you're part of these patterns, part of this emergence
right
around you. and I think it's incredibly brave the way you continue pushing these patterns, and it seems abstract. I think it's, when you start talking about these things, it's something that affects all of us, and I think it is very accessible in that way, and I think there's something very beautiful about it as well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, but I don't want to take up too much of your time
That's
talking
okay.
about
Well,
this.
other questions?
So,
I'm much better responding to questions than making stuff up, which is why I teach.
anyone?
When are you gonna clean the microwave?
I got it half clean. Hey, it's my microwave.
So, I'm glad John chimed in here, because what's also interesting about this show is it's also a very pivotal moment in that you're going in your 3D direction.
Right.
And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Follies. And when Gwen went to meet Bruce the first time, he had made 2 or 3 of these things because he's sharing a space with John McEnroe, and he started exploring with the 3-dimensional. And so maybe you could talk about them more, but the idea of Follies and why you're calling them Follies, maybe?
Well, John got in here because he curated that collection of...
So when I walked into the studio, or excuse me, yeah, in the studio, this shelf was hanging on the outside wall of the studio, and these pieces were exactly like they are on the shelf. And I said, I want that in the show. I love it, and it's sort of perfect, and I wouldn't really want to change out any of the objects, and so that's, so I don't know if it says that on label, but John finished the pieces. And so, so Follies, go.
Well, Follies, first of all, you know, a folly in architecture is a building that it's generally useless. A lot of times you can't even get in them. There's no real door. And, you know, therefore aesthetic or mood or atmosphere,
And James
right?
Turrell makes these folly structures. There's a few artists that use follies, but you know, they're more of a Victorian opulence.
Right. And there's, you know, like faux neo-Gothic, and, you know, we still get all that. And I was interested in it, I became aware of them because of, you know, some research I did into ornamentation. So this notion of a building that itself is an ornamentation as opposed to something that carries ornamentation. Also, of course, it has the, you know, the idea of it's a folly to do that, or a mistake, or a foolish action, or something like that. And to me, that kind of captures, you know, my sort of attitude when I'm working with things, because, you know, oh, it's on the floor and it's dirty. Oh, look at that lovely dirt. Stick it in a piece. So there's a kind of attitude towards stuff that just happens. And I was interested in that. And then, of course, there's also a folly as in a, you know, a parade, or, you know, a production that is, you know, effervescent. Well, that's a word. And so I was interested in all those kinds of meanings, not in just a simple,
Sure.
you know, kind of meaning. And then, you know, it's made of paper and it's object.
But
And
the objects come from where? They're from pieces that maybe didn't make it in the 2D world? And these
there's
bigger
some of
pieces,
that, probably.
You've, well, I remember you telling me that you took some from
I
the
did take some stuff that, like, didn't work,
right.
because I have a big stack of stuff that doesn't work.
And I love that.
Whatever that
It
is.
has this new life, and it works.
Yeah, and my shirts get in here quite a bit. I mean, like, this is my shirt,
It probably didn't work.
right there. Yeah. No, it's actually my favorite shirt, but, yeah, and I got holes and all that kind of stuff, and no doubt this will end up somewhere, but, so there's, you know, the fabrics come from all, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I hadn't really done a lot of 3D work, and so that's not a reason not to do it, that's a reason to do it. So suddenly I was like, oh, wow, I'm making objects. Who knew? Right? And that's what I love, is that moment where it's like, oh, I didn't even know I knew how to make these.
But you've always made objects. I would argue that these are all objects.
Okay, that's true.
And speaking of
Especially in
3D
the-
work,
yeah, in the way you display them.
Well, that's true, and I did those boxes and, you know, those hyper-geometric boxes that use the Fibonacci series and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but they're also, you know, it's a way of you know, painting object, is it sculpture, is it painting? And I've sat more in painting. And these to me are different because it's more an object that is painted than a painting that's an object. That makes sense at all. You buy that?
Yeah,
You're gonna buy
I think
that?
they're paintings that acknowledge themselves as objects.
This is not a
Sexy.
You can call it what you want. Any other questions? Well, on that note, thank you all for coming out and supporting Bruce. And
Thank you. I do want to say one last thing. You know, this is a great triumph for me. And yay. Right? But I'm also really, really lucky because I had the right work at the right time for the right reason. And there are in this room full of amazing artists that should have shows here too. So I just want to, it's not just me, Denver is blessed. So I just wanted to say that. For all the artists here, thank you, thank you.
That was so nice. Very awesome.